What's up, Pokemon Team Rocket members? Welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to be taking a look at some Pokemon rumors, theories, potentially some leaks about the starter Pokemon in Pokemon Winds and Waves. So let's get started right away. Kicking things off, we're going to be jumping over here and taking a look at a post from Soul Silver Art. Actually, most of the posts we're going to be taking a look at today are going to be from Soul Silver because he has actually had himself a big spree of posts about what the potential evolutions and basis is for a lot of the starter Pokemon. Starting things off, we have this one right here. He says, looks like Gen 10 might actually have a Netherlands region after all. Indonesia was a Dutch colony for over 300 years, which, yes, they left a lot of influence because of that. So I am all but convinced that Brout's brow and mouth is fan-shaped, meaning Brout's final evolution could have a windmill / something Dutch in its design somehow. I mean, if he's going to be Dutch, you can just give him a lot of money. Either way, I don't know what kind of bird it'll be, but it could be an Indonesian or a European one. But I think it could really be a Dutch-inspired Pokemon. I think this is a detail that really should be added into some Fakemon IDs for the final evolution, but a detail could even be move away from the brows. Maybe they'll just grow really long, and its tail and like back feathers will make the shape of a windmill. All I'm saying is this could end up being a really important, and I might tie into other starters, which I'll talk about tomorrow. There were a few windmills in the Winds and Waves trailer, which is true. We did see a few of those, as you may have already noticed. But yeah, it says Indonesia, again, was a Dutch colony for over 300 years, known as the Dutch East Indies, which, if you know any history, you are aware of that. But iconic windmills and vast tulip fields and intricate canal systems, which is what the Netherlands visually is like, the big wooden shoes, and of course the windmills and the tulips, which, by the way, tulips are not even from the Netherlands. They actually were something they imported from another place, which they, I think, colonized. So yeah, either way, this would also tie into heavily to at least Brout's having a theme creating natural wind or energy, which, again, I think all the starters are going to have some connection to like natural phenomena, winds and waves or whatever, especially because the modern Netherlands doesn't mess around when it comes to wind turbine energy. Just look at this image. And also, the Netherlands are a perfect... Actually, I think the Netherlands and Indonesia and the Southeast Asia are perfect examples of parts of the world where humanity is trying to take back from nature. And what I mean by this is, if you guys do not know, the Netherlands is a part of the world which is consistently sinking. Like Netherlands, like comes from Nederland, right? Like lowlands, like lower lands. Literally, that's where it comes from because... not to shit on the Dutch or the Belgians too, to be fair, but there ain't no mountains here. It's pretty flat. It's pretty flat, and it's sinking. The Netherlands is sinking consistently year over year because of, you know, global warming and all that. It is raising the sea levels. Raising sea levels means the land, which is already pretty low in the lowlands of Netherlands, right, is sinking. But what the Netherlands has been doing now for over 100 years plus at this point, for a long time, is that they've actually been literally reclaiming land from the sea. They've been taking back land by building little artificial islands and artificial land by bringing in, you know, literally soil from other parts of the world and stuff to literally take back those parts, or even building like dams and ways to stop the ocean water and basically dry it out. So they've been doing this, and the idea of like, we already know that the villains in these games, like we know for a fact the villains in these games are going to, in some shape or form, in one way or another, they're gonna be like building stuff. They're gonna be sort of a construction company. So the idea of them maybe trying to take back, you know, from nature, which is going to cause the Pokemon to disappear, because of course the moment you do anything like this, it may potentially you know, impact ecology and stuff, which is of course maybe in the Netherlands not as much so given the, you know, situation there, but in Southeast Asia, where you have a lot of differing biodiversity with different animals and stuff, it could potentially cause, you know, some things to happen, you know, to the creatures living there, and maybe there could be some connection there. He says, lastly, look at this little detail that could be understood from Brout's Japanese name. This could have been from the word blow, as in blowing wind. One too many connections to not be considered, which, yes, I mean, that's fair. It's actually, he gets this from Poketsutami, who does some great translations to Japanese stuff. So the Japanese meaning, of course, being of Brout haburo, which this could have a potential few factors. Could be from happa, leaf, or habu for herb. The other word could also derive from blow, as in blowing wind. hand. It's also likely from eyebrow, with the brow being prominent, so that's always a possibility. But that's some of the theories he had about that. Also, another one that people have been sharing, this from Austin, who says I want Gekwa final evolution to become a kimono dragon, which is possible. Komodo, isn't it Komodo dragon? Not kimono. Komodo dragon, I'm pretty sure. If Gekwa actually becomes a geisha-inspired design, this would be the best, most ironic typo in all of Pokemon, which that could be possible, man. Because again, it does give off a little bit of a geisha type of vibe, if I'm going to be honest. But nonetheless, though, the next thing here we have is a few more theories about potentially, and I think this is from, is this Awful Art? Yeah, Awful Art, who says that they have a bit of a theory about, like, basically what these guys could be based on. Because if you guys know, like a theme about these Pokemon. So if you guys do not know, in Pokemon Sword and Shield, for example, all the starters are based off of some sort of form of entertainment, right? Or from the UK, that's very famous from the UK. So, for example, Inteleon is supposed to be a secret agent or whatever, like a movie star like James Bond. Cinderace is supposed to be a football player, or for Americans, a soccer player. And then, of course, the final one was Rillaboom, was supposed to be a drummer, a punk drummer, which also makes sense because punk rock originated from the UK. So, the idea here is it possible that all the final evolutions of the starters here could be based on some form of renewable energy, which also makes sense because renewable energy literally relies on natural phenomena, right? You need wind to move the turbines. You need waves and, essentially waves, or water to move to, which is, waves itself, to create energy here, and then solar, which this ties really well into this one theory, right? This ties perfectly into this one theory that I saw posted from Pokemon Millennium, which I've already probably made a video about, but is this a theory from Pokemon Millennium that, hey, what if this logo that we see, and I'm going to see if I can show this to you guys on screen, if I can find it, because I do have a ungodly amount of Pokemon posts that I got to go through, but is this like actually really, really cool theory that was posted by none else than Pokemon Millennium about potentially the logos and their implications, and also a third legendary that could be based on the sun, and I want to show specifically where the connection for me takes place there. So let me pop this up on screen real quick. Here is where it is. So he noticed that the logo that can be found on the Pokemon, Winds and Waves character, the male character, that the icon on it is actually two different icons. If you look at this one, the shape of this one is the shape of a wind, because Pokemon Winds version, and the shape of this one right here is like a wave. But then in the center of both of them, there is a circle. That circle, he thinks, could be representing sunlight, right? The actual sun itself as being a third Pokemon, or some form of something like that, which I wonder... that would make sense, because the three forms of renewable energy are wind, solar, and waves. Those are the three renewable sources of energy that can be used that we know of. And is it also possible the starters are based on that? It's a possibility, right? Wind, solar, and hydroelectric. Then here, he also tries to make a connection in the actual designs, right? That Brout, the shape of its like nose and the little leaf looks kind of like, one of those windmills, like the wind turbines. The shape of course, Pombon being the shape of the sun, with like... literally, yeah, it's just a sun shape. And then, of course, here, water, hydroelectric. Again, really, really, really cool theory, and I think it's highly possible. As you can see here, Soul says, if I was to read into the starters' main features more, this theory of one of their main themes being energy source is the most plausible, in my opinion, of other theories. Pombom's hair and or face could be like a solar panel that powers up the organ in its lungs that we see glowing. Brout's leaves would be similar because of photosynthesis, but they are also shaped like a windmill slash fan, a huge detail for a later post. And if Brout's energy source inspiration is wind, then that makes grass and flying more likely, in my opinion. Gekwa is the weakest link here, because water and psychic referencing the literal flow of water could be connected to the water movement making energy. Again, highly possible. And here, he also had this previous post. I personally don't think they will focus on deities for the starters, as those are usually saved for legendary Pokemon, because we did speak about the potential that they're going to base them on the Garuda, Barong, and Naga, which are three different, sort of, how'd you say it? Like, deities. I guess the only word you can really use here. Deities, gods, whatever you want to call them in the case here. But he says he personally doesn't think so, but just maybe a guardian motif could be a thing. Garuda, Barong, and actually Tokek or Sikak are guardian deity-like creatures. So maybe Maybe they could be for legendaries. Maybe it could be for these. I don't know. A battle of the hair is also possible. It's a funny thing could happen. Is seeing a small motif, but not a main one. I've also seen a lot of people talk about their motifs being a traversal method of main elements of nature, which, I mean, maybe. Does Pombon have a pompadour? Is this going to be a battle of the brows, lashes, and hair? Possibly. Winds and waves, air, land, water, bird, air, dog, land, and water, lizard, sea. Again, who knows? Maybe. It's all a possibility, okay? It's all a possibility. But yeah, that was a really cool post he made. And he also had this post right here, kind of referring back to his original post here about Brout, saying, Winds and Waves starters could be like the Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet starters themed on other nations that influenced or influenced by Southeast Asia. As many say, Gekwa could have an India theme due to its possible forehead bindi marking, which is, yes, you can see it right there. As many say, Gekwa could have the indie theme due to that, which of course India has a huge influence in history with Southeast Asia, obviously, because they're literally right there. So Brout, Dutch, Gekwa, Indian, and then Pombom, Indonesian, Chinese, Japanese, UK, maybe. I'm gonna break all these down in separate post parts soon. But yeah, basically the connections could be there. There's also specifically similar to Paldea starters, Prigatito, Spanish, European, Fuecoco, Mexican, Mesoamerican, and Quaxley, Brazilian, by the way, of Portugal and Spain. So yes, again, there could be some connection there. There is also the winds waves connection too. There's a lot of possibilities. Also, here's another theory as well. It says, if true, one bird that is very tied to the Dutch is the extinct dodo, which was first discovered by the Dutch, ties nicely into the survival theme. It's a bit of a lackluster though, so maybe it's an inspiration for Brout's middle stage before it becomes a bigger windmill dodo mixed bird. Again, could be that too. Again, we've already taken a look at this post, so that's fine. And also here, we have again this whole idea of the different parts of them, like that they focus on the brow, like the brow here, the tail, like the little puff of hair on the top here, and then here they focused on the tail, interestingly. So, as you notice that the sus introduction of the Winds and Waves starters, it focused on one feature of each of their designs. Brout's brow, Pombom's pompadour, and Gekwa's tail. Could this be a hint to these specific features being the main focus in how they will evolve? Again, highly possible. We'll have to wait and see. Also, he says this, if I was to read into the starter's main feature more, this theory is one of the main theories of the energy source the most plausible. I guess we already read that one. And I think that pretty much summarizes most of the theories he had here. I think we already looked at most of the other ones. But yeah, again, what are your thoughts and opinions, ladies and gentlemen? Because I think the possibility here, genuinely, like honestly, of them basing it off of the three like different sorts of like renewable energies is a highly possible thing. But I also think the renewable energy thing more so for me feels like connected to legendaries. Like, is that weird? I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I feel like there's a bigger connection there instead. But again, I digress. Maybe I'm just yapping. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But that's going to be some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And hopefully I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out and bye-bye, ladies and gentlemen.